What, his or her? What, you can't tell?
Time immemorial, the gods have always fought the demons. We find this in every story, mythology, and epic of our world. Like the two sides of a coin, good and evil balance the value of a story and propel it into the minds of the audience, making them relate to the various persona within themselves, thereby increasing the engagement. As it is, the animated cartoons of every genre have a similar approach, making the young population glued to the storylines, to rejoice in how the good triumphed over the evil in adverse conditions. So here we bring you 15 of the top villains from cartoons from the 2000s, which would have held us to our seats in anticipation of how the protagonists finally overcame their horrific but wonderful superpowers. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, let's begin. Aku, Samurai Jack. The origin of this supervillain loosely unites three different ancient mythological deities of our world: Odin, Ra, and Rama. The dark forces that originated during the formation of the universe were defeated by the three gods. However, a little extract of it survived and drifted into the deep space of oblivion, and crash-landed on Earth during the Jurassic Era, eradicating all life on Earth. As millennia and eras passed by, this little dark matter could grow irrevocably, consuming all living matter around it, forming a huge forest. An emperor who happened to be Samurai Jack's father made a valiant effort to kill the evil form by shooting an arrow laden with a mysterious poison elixir into its heart. Contradictorially, the poison acted inadvertently, making the dark fragment attain intelligence and shape-shifting abilities, and began to be called Aku. Even though the Emperor could defeat the monster with his god-gifted sword and lock him into a tree, Aku managed to escape from his imprisonment and inflict irrevocable losses on the Emperor and his empire, causing his wife and son, a young Jack, to escape Aku's ruthlessness along with the sword. Jack returned as a sophisticated, trained samurai for a revengeful face-off with Aku. The battle ensued with Jack very close to the cusp of victory, when Aku used his time portal abilities to somersault Jack to another realm of time. So the series galvanizes the audience into a millennially distant future, where Jack appears to confront his arch-nemesis again, as Aku has already capitalized on Jack's long absence and garnered a huge empire. Aku comes across as a bloodthirsty monster who can torment his opponents to the maximum, which is evident as he compels the Emperor to watch his empire on fire, as he knows what an emperor cannot bear more than his death. The monstrous form lacks empathy completely, which makes him a gory killer of his enemies and erroneous slaves. The Deadly One, after a prolonged battle with Samurai Jack over several centuries, realizes the inevitable truth that Jack is undefeatable and that there's no possible end in sight for the conflict, slips into a mild depression, and it is shown to represent a progressive lack of interest in the proceedings. In certain fragments, the evil Aku also hits with some good punchlines, and sometimes turns goofy with hilarious stuff, like ordering a pizza or consulting a psychiatrist.
What was left? You missed the invasion.
Ozai, Avatar: The Last Airbender. This maverick is the offspring of Fire Lord Azulon, and holds no chord in his heart that can beat for a good cause. Ozai grows up cautious of his sibling Iroh, maybe in anticipation that he could endanger his right to the throne in the future. Ozai becomes overly ambitious and wary of any potential threat who can claim the Fire Lordship, and tries to eliminate them with disdain. At one instant, he gnaws Iroh's ascendance to the throne by claiming that the death of Iroh's son threatens the mighty empire of the Fire Lords of non-descendants. This also leads to a cruel situation where Ozai is ordered to kill his own son Zuko, which he willingly tries, which is thawed by his wife Ursa timely. Ozai does not hold high morale and diligence to anyone due to his arrogance and ego. His illegal ascendance to the throne as Fire Lord, killing his own father, and his ever-increasing hate for his son Zuko indicate the levels that Ozai can go to defeat his evil intentions. His duel with Aang the Avatar at the battle at Oolong Forest is an epic one, where his firebending is boosted by Sozin's comet, almost defeating Aang. Eventually, Ozai triggers the 7th chakra of Aang, which transforms Aang into the Avatar state, who then proceeds to defeat Ozai and irrevocably neutralize his firebending powers. Ozai spends the rest of his life as a prisoner, and doesn't regret his wrongdoings, albeit the advice from his near and dear ones like his son Zuko, who becomes the new Fire Lord. Ozai is then seen as power-greedy, easily intimidated, and a super-powered emperor. His firebending and lightning-inflicting abilities make him one of the most formidable villains. His shamelessness is evident from his act of poisoning his own father to become the emperor. His mischievous nerves come to the fore as he tries to influence his son Zuko in political subjects, when he's held prisoner after being defeated and humbled by Aang the Avatar. The only positive motive of this bloodthirsty Prime Legionnaire is his fondness for advancing science and technology in his kingdom as the Fire Lord, aiding continuous betterment of his weaponry. Slade Wilson, Teen Titans. Slade is a metahuman whose sole purpose in his life is to eliminate the Teen Titans and take control of Jump City. Somehow, this statement also seems to be a ruse, as in one of the sequences, even though Slade gets his hands on the Titans to kill them, he relinquishes it, highlighting the fact that the half-robot always strives for purpose, and will be completely lost if he kills them. Slade uses his manipulating capabilities to fish out a lot of other characters as his allies, some of the closest ones being the Titans like Robin and Tara. However, we're inclined to think that they backfire eventually, as in the case of Robin or Tara. The semi-machine is always seen to be sadistic and merciless when it comes to his ultimate goal of killing the Teen Titans, the reasons for which remain largely unknown. Season 2 of the franchise rumbles us into Slade's alliance with Tara, another powerful metahuman with unbelievable superpowers, and how he pockets her confidence against the Teen Titans. The subversion also causes Slade and Tara to defeat the Titans, which subsequently boils down to a goodwill show by Titans towards Tara, recasting her on their side, and thereby finally spilling the evilish Slade to his death. Slade is surrounded by mystery, and his actions are more than his words, which seem limited but highly effective. His rendering as a cool Jack leads the audience to misunderstand him as timid and mysterious. The antagonist's half-orange mask and barely visible clumsy blondes makes us ponder about his probable but miserable history as a human who is turned into this devilish machine.
So much trouble. Who are you? I am Vilgax.
Vilgax, Ben 10. This horrendous and most dangerous of the enemies of Ben, the grandson of Max, is a perversely ambitious octopus-like devil who can go to any extent when it comes to capturing the Omniverse or killing Ben. And yes, the choosing between killing Ben and devouring the Omniverse can be quite complicated and slurpy for Vilgax, the monster who greeds for both equally. This devil comes from the Shadow Realm and has since then destroyed all those who knew about his origins, obviously wary of the world knowing about a certain weakness of his. Vilgax is a cold and grudgy killer when it comes to his demonic desires of being the emperor of the Omniverse and defeating his opponents. His superpowers include churning out powerful energy projectiles at his assailants, and he also has been successful in destroying several worlds and creating a black hole of his own. His evil eyes can chalk out laser beams, and his combative skills can cause lament among his adversaries. Vilgax's abilities also have a downturn, as very few are fond of allying with him, and hence the green monster tries to get machinic forms as his slaves. Ben is the arch nemesis of Vilgax, before whom Ben's grandfather Max was his tormentor-in-chief. Vilgax also at one point in time seems to be a great protector of Vilgaxia, and appears to be a savior of his people, but is then tainted by the murmur he's only showing off to be a great leader. Ben's hilarious take on Vilgax's feisty hits are always wonderful to watch. Vilgax comes across as a clever and persistent monster, who's consistently opposed by the heroic Ben, who derails his plots. Vilgax is a technically advanced and a tech-savvy antagonist who makes his best efforts to conquer the Omniverse with his methodical plans and his supernatural abilities. Darkseid, Justice League Animated Series. Darkseid is one of the most feared anti-heroes of the world of DC, who poses the biggest threat to the goddish heroes we all have known: Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, and the rest of the Justice League. The origin of this monster hinges on the son of Queen Hegra of Ragnarok, called Euxus, who without any remorse kills his mother to avenge the death of his good wife Sully, and then unlawfully captures the Omega Effect after killing his brother Drax. Euxus then goes on the high mountains of Ragnarok and influences the old gods to kill each other with fraudish rumors, thereby capturing their powers. This metamorphosizes Euxus into the demonic form we know him as today, Darkseid. Darkseid eventually fights Highfather, during the course of which the world splits into two: Apocalypse, ruled by Darkseid, and New Genesis, conquered by Highfather. The parademons are taunted by a multi-dimensional traveler, Kaio, who imitates Darkseid to pursue her. The whole epic of Darkseid traveling realms and planets, annihilating them without pity, stems from his pursuit as the demons realize the existence of millions of places to kill the free will and establish his monopoly over all minds. Darkseid encounters various combinations of the Justice League, and even destroys several of them in different dimensions. He's considered the most formidable opponent of Superman, with equivalent and even more powers like the dangerous Omega Effect, superhuman speeds, levitation, telekinesis, and cosmic sense. There are important face-offs of Darkseid with the Justice League, where he defeats and is also eventually overpowered. In the television franchise, Darkseid kicks off with a softer version of himself, trying to pull off tricks to woo Wonder Woman, who seems to be his love interest in Super Friends' legendary superpower show. Thereon, in the Superman cartoons from the 1990s, Darkseid, in a bid to capture Earth, controls Superman's mind to subject Earth to mega destruction. This leads to an otherworldly conflict between Darkseid and Superman, where the superhero blocks the Omega rays from Darkseid's eyes, thereby causing a blow-up, injuring the demon severely. In the next series, Darkseid forms an alliance with Justice League to fight against another intergalactic enemy called Brainiac, which ensues in a brutal battle between Orion, Superman, and a betraying Darkseid. Batman pulls out Superman and Orion in a doomful blast of Brainiac's base, which kills Darkseid. The further installment also explores a fused version of Darkseid and Brainiac, who returns as a chief antagonist called Brainside, defeating Superman but mysteriously vanishing with the anti-life equation along with Lex Luthor. Smallville explores Darkseid as an entity which is hosted by several other bodies of human beings, and does not portray the original form of the villain. Batman, the Brave and the Bold, also brings in Darkseid, subdued at the hands of the Justice League International, in the final moments. Darkseid also returns in Young Justice Invasion, to showcase the Conqueror again, in alliance with Vandal Savage to ravage the Earth. Vlad Plasmius, Danny Phantom. This half-ghost, half-human was originally a naive college kid, who did his math and ate his bread like all of us. However, one rueful day when he and his closest friend Jack Fenton were exploring their new invention of a prototype which opened a ghost portal, Jack accidentally poured a Diet Coke instead of an ectopurifier. This resulted in a horrific blast from the portal, infecting Vlad with ectoacne, and also messing up his DNA with ectoplasm. Vlad transformed into a supernatural being, a half-human and half-ghost. This unwanted ability or disability to remain a normal human bittered up the injured soul to such an extent that he vowed to avenge this by destroying his once good friend Jack. To add to this as a topping, Jack also married Vlad's love interest Maddie, and formed a family with two lovely kids, Danny and Jazz. The whole franchise runs around Vlad's desperate and cruel attempts to harm the Fenton family, which is cleverly or luckily usurped by Jack's half-ghost son, Danny Phantom, who's Vlad's archenemy. The series takes us through as Vlad tries numerous deadly tricks to kill the Fentons, like capturing Danny and decapitating him with his technical inventions, like Plasmius Maximus in a dense forest, which leaves Danny at the mercy of his ghost animals. Danny is partially saved by his mother Maddie, after which our little hero turns Vlad tricks against him, defeating him with his own ghost animals and Plasmius Maximus. In other attempts, Vlad, in pursuit of a skeleton key which could enable him to open any door in the universe and release any prisoner, ties up a rare truce with Danny to defeat a wrongfully released evil ghost, King Pariah, who almost defeats Vlad and Danny together. However, a resurgent Danny uses the ectoskeleton to finally push back the Ghost King back into his sarcophagus, locking him up again. Vlad also gets into time travel as Danny visits his alternate versions in other timelines, where Vlad is even a caretaker of Danny who lost his parents. There's also the instance of Vlad and Danny's half-ghosts merging into one, causing a major catastrophe in the world with destruction. Danny is killed in this timeline, and a full human Vlad escapes. The story takes an interesting turn as the present-day Danny gets trapped in this alternate future and visits Vlad, who becomes an old hermit in the past 10 years, which made him realize what he lost due to his demonic ways as Vlad. Coming back to the present, the final fall, the evil Vlad promises to be a hero to the world by showing his true ghostly form to the world and falsely claiming to destroy an oncoming asteroid towards Earth in exchange for a huge ransom and the Empire of Earth. This proves futile as the otherworldly rock is known to be made up of anti-ghost element, against which Vlad's powers are useless. This depresses Vlad, realizing that he will be pursued by the world for being a ghost forever, and hence surrenders to Jack and pleads with him to take him on board the Fenton rocket. Jack abandons Vlad in space as punishment, effectively banishing him to the eternal vacuum forever. Vlad comes across as a cruel and wicked ghost who manipulates and kills to meet his greed. As a ghost, he can simply vanish, fly, and bear superhuman strength. The strikes from his energy blast are pink and can harm greatly. He has a ghost stinger with which he can weaken his enemies by draining out their energies. He can also survive voids of space with relative ease.
For genetic technology, there's only one logical explanation. Fairy godparents!
Mr. Crocker, the Fairly Odd Parents. This middle-aged antagonist is a crooked teacher of Timmy, The sole purpose of this character is, for reasons best known or not known to him, is to prove the existence of fairies and Timmy's association with them. There seems to be a historic reason in which Crocker is a good, helpful kid during his childhood, but has an abusive one because of his evil caretaker Vic. However, he gets Cosmo and Wanda as his fairy godparents, who, under unforeseen circumstances, are exposed to the public when Timmy from the future tries to prevent the very same scenario to protect Crocker from becoming evil. This prompts Jorgen von Strangle, the fairy god, to wipe out Crocker's memory about his fairy godparents, and due to an overdose of Forgetison, Crocker also becomes severely disfigured. This results in Crocker forgetting all his old good deeds and turning negative. Crocker, in the present, is a complete misogynist who dislikes everything about himself as well as the world. At the same time, he's also portrayed as a clever scientist who can invent brilliant gadgets which can find out the presence of fairies. Crocker's sad life grows around his belief about the existence of fairies, which somewhere points to a possible deep inner element in him, which might not have been completely erased by Jorgen's Forgetison, which was used to erase his memories of his fairy godparents. He spends his teen years trying to research about fairies, and his wonderful explorations are laughed at and mocked, resulting in all the research funding money going to Dinkelberg's invention of parachute pants. This ensues with Dinkelberg breaking up with his girlfriend, who in the future marries Mr. Turner, who together are the parents of Timmy. Hence, Crocker is, in a way, the main reason for Timmy's existence. In the further episodes of the series, as Crocker becomes the teacher of Timmy, he also loses his job on 3 different occasions, as a meat seller and a guard. Crocker personifies a maniac who's unfortunate and victimized in different ways, and ends up in situations that many times go beyond his control, which also makes the audience sympathize with his state.
Exactly how long did you say you were going to keep the kids?
Forever.
Nurgle, the grim adventures of Billy and Mandy. Nurgle is a monster from deep inside Earth who happens to have supernatural abilities that allow him to electrocute human beings at will. He plays the primary antagonist role for only some seasons. His negativity stems from his fear of being left alone without friends, jealousy, and the rejections he may face. Rather than any true cruel intentions, he inhabits the center of Earth and is immortal, with powerful tentacles propelling from his back, and uses them to harm his enemies. He owns a pizza shop, which he runs by making pizzas with the finest ingredients, and baked with the fieriest furnace that anyone could have ever seen. His wife is Sis, with whom he has a half-human, half-monster son called Nurgle the Jr. Nurgle loves his family and is a good father and husband. He's forced to hurt when he's rejected or shunned by other people. Nurgle is called the Wickedest and begins his appearance in the series with the episode Fiend is like a friend without the R, and almost owns this characterization throughout the series. Right from the start, he tries to break open the friendship between Grim, Billy, and Mandy by forcibly pulling them to the center of Earth. As the series progresses, we can see how badly Nurgle tries to socialize, even though he fares poorly at it. It seems that the centuries-long isolation has pushed Nurgle to the brink of insanity, and coupled with his lame social skills, he's a perfect recipe for disaster when it comes to befriending. Nurgle can also summon a team of demons from the depths of Earth called Nurglings, who help him in capturing people and forcing them to be friends with him. In another episode, despite his erroneous dating brilliance and several unsuccessful attempts by Billy, Mandy, and Grim, Nurgle is able to win over Sis, his crush from Earth, with his dancing. The story continues into the next installment, with the arrival of Nurgle's half-monster of a son, and also ensues with Nurgle's superb pizza making.
And how you turned to me and softly made your brave confession? Yeah. And how this is the last...
The Monarch, the Venture Bros. The Monarch is a wicked antagonist who can go to any extent on his everlasting mission to hurt Dr. Thaddeus Venture and his sons Hank and Dean, along with their security guards Brock Sampson and Sergeant Hatred. Albeit the fact that Monarch is a toned-down clone of Dr. Venture, he seems to be nurturing a personal hatred for Venture right from his younger days. This looks to be another case of an abusive childhood, from how the Monarch explains it. He was created from the DNA of Thaddeus Venture and a baboon's DNA to stabilize the final version. He was then adopted by Mrs. Fitzcarraldo and Don Fitzcarraldo, a wealthy couple. Don was a secret superhero Blue Morpho who fought for the good. When young Monarch's parents get killed in an accident, the little boy wanders off into the forest, where a huge kaleidoscope of monarch butterflies help by raising him. Again, after being abandoned by the butterflies, the lad moves back to Fitzcarraldo Mansion and grows up to be a writing class student. This is where Monarch meets up with Dr. Venture and begins his initial attempts to kill him. After enrolling himself with a criminal group called Guild, he becomes a henchman to several other villains in their unlawful activities, gaining more crooked experiences for these benefits. During this time, he starts wearing his Monarch butterfly costume and gets recognized. Monarch also brings up a set of henchmen for himself, who are all nominated with numbers. Henchman number 21 is Monarch's favorite, who's committed and loyal to his master even though he knows how merciless he is to all of them. Monarch himself is also a dishonest villain, as he cheats his former boss, Phantom Limb, during his days as a henchman with Guild by secretly having an affair with Phantom's wife, Queen Etheria, who eventually becomes Dr. Mrs. Monarch after being banished along with Monarch by the saddened Phantom. Monarch is also cheated on, as Dr. Mrs. Monarch, in a continuing cheat fest, gets into a secret relationship with Henchman number 21. In Season 3, after numerous failed attempts to kill Dr. Venture, Monarch enters into a depression before being prodded by his wife, after which he gets into a wonderful altercation with Dr. Venture and clones his son. There's no looking back, as Monarch's cutting-edge suit fails and he is defeated. In the successive seasons, Monarch tries innovative ways to torment Dr. Venture, including entering his brain and rendering him into a coma. In the end, however, the Monarch is defeated with the destruction of his mansion. There's also a surprising turn in the series, as Monarch gets to meet his father in the form of Vendetta, a robot created to resurrect Blue Morpho's persona. As the franchise unwinds, Monarch goes through several stages of the supervillain levels, all aimed at obtaining a clearance from the Guild to defeat Dr. Venture. To achieve this, he also briefly dons the superhero suit of his father Blue Morpho, killing other supervillains on the pretext of getting to his mission of getting the nod to overcome Dr. Venture.
Time at last for the kids who used to tease me in gym, little...
Dr. Draken, Kim Possible. This villain is the chief nemesis of Kim, as she sees him so. Draken is bluish owing to his negativity and is considered to be a megalomaniac. His evil accomplice is Shigo, a former member of Team Go, but now assists Draken by stealing things and becoming a part of his criminal plots. Draken is a mean, jealous, and wicked scientist, but also well known for his brilliant inventions like robots, drones, and annihilators. His gadgets, however, may sometimes prove to be too much ahead of their time, like BB, whom he brings as a replacement for his promise of dates to his friends. Draken during his young days is a classmate of Kim's father, Bob Chen, and is already on the path to his criminal trail when he lands up with his great-grand-grandpa's old recording, which inspires him to be his eventual villainous self. He continues to be a selfish antagonist despite the fact that Kim saves him during the fight for dead pirate Black Eye Brown's treasure, as we see Draken possessed with the ghost of the pirate when he gets his hands on the silver cutlass. In the subsequent storyline, Draken and Shigo intend to take over the world with mutant flowers, the plot of which is foiled. However, a ferocious battle ensues, where a furious alien Warmongga and her battlemate Warhawk try to conquer the world and capture Kim and Draken. Despite differences in their philosophical and fundamental points of view, Draken joins hands with Kim and fights Warmongga and her army with his mutant flowers. Their respective assistants, Ron and Shigo, too, get together to rescue their leads, and the overall intentions start turning positive to save the world. The engaging battle ends with Ron subduing the aliens, as Draken does his part by destroying the Lorwardian war machines with his mutant flowers. Dr. Hines Doofenshmirtz, Phineas and Ferb. Doofenshmirtz is not completely a villainous character, even though he plays the enemy-in-chief of the Phineas and Ferb series. He's mainly involved in battles with Perry the Platypus, the protector of the tri-state area. Hines is a self-proclaimed scientist, even though all of his so-called smart inventions are foiled by Perry, when used with evil intentions. He's so used to failing that on solemn occasions when he succeeds, he starts feeling uneasy about it. His self-narrated victimized traumatic childhood is sometimes questionable, given his half-witty credentials. According to him, he's been mentally traumatized by his parents and could not even celebrate his birthdays or eat cakes. He was forever bullied by his peer Boris, who used to kick sand into Hines' face, to such an extent that Hines started feeling that something was not right on days when Boris did not show up. He tries his best to woo women, which also ends up on most situations in a mess, as in the case of Linda Flynn before she really rose to popularity. Hines takes Linda out for a drive-in movie, where he tries to show off his latest invention, which can transmit the movie sound in fifth dimension. But then, as always, the gadget malfunctions and causes the whole movie screen to blow up, instigating Linda to get furious and break up with Hines. Hines finally marries Charlene and has a daughter, Vanessa. The marriage is short-lived as they get divorced from each other. As fresh sprinklers on a hot pot, you can witness a good dad in Hines, but the one who miserably fails in giving a good birthday party to his daughter despite his best efforts. The character is goofy and eccentric at the same time, always trying to bask in the glory of his false narratives and inventions.
You bad!
Father, codename Kids Next Door. The whole idea of adults versus kids is exemplified to perfection with the character of Father, alias Benedict, who hates the kids next door, or K&D, who have a tremendous generation of history of their own. The current 7th Age has number 1, 3, and 4 as the primary ones to fight it out with Father, who makes numerous attempts to destroy them with his delightful children from down the lane. Father is so cruel that in one of the episodes he tries to bake the K&D alive to make a cake for the delightful children from down the lane. He follows his father's footsteps and is next in cruelty to Grandfather, who also has similar super evil powers and hunches. It's also revealed that Father is the uncle of number 1 in K&D. To his disgust when number 1's father takes his son to teach him the identity of the supervillain they're fighting. Father's outwardly powers include levitation, ability to set up a firewall around him, and shoot fireballs to harm his opponents.
On a salvage transport and prepare to mobilize the infantry. This way!
Gorath, Megas XLR. Gorath is the chief villain who fights to destroy humanity, and is consistently resisted by Coop. He's an evil alien, who's green and slimy and has absolutely no tolerance for humanity. He leads a war-thirsty race of aliens named Glorft, and makes numerous attempts to destroy Coop and his accomplices like Kiva. The story revolves around Gorath and his Glorft, trying to capture the Megas, a high-end robot created by Glorft, whose primary purpose was to destroy humanity. However, Kiva's super skills hacked the giant mecha and tilted to the side of humanity, revolting against the green aliens. To capture Megas, Gorath follows Kiva and travels back in time to come against Coop and gets into his fights with him. Gorath is disregardful for Coop, but despite this ill feeling, he gets along with him when they fall into an alternate reality where an evil Coop and Kiva have conquered the world and are rampaging it further. Dark Lord Chuckles the Silly Piggy, Dave the Barbarian. Silly Piggy Chuckles is a half-human, half-pig, whose main aim is to destroy Dave and his family and conquer and rule Udragoth. Chuckles not only possesses a powerful magic amulet, with which he attains supernatural abilities like shape-shifting and telekinesis, but is also a gifted tech inventor who can come up with dazzling gadgets like the Mecha Dave. Chuckles is evil, opportunistic, and wicked, and does not care about moral values when it comes to his selfish intentions of capturing Udragoth, as we see him transform into a diseased weasel that becomes the pet of Faffy, who is the pet dragon of Dave. This is to accomplish the stealing of magical grape of Bobo Bidobo, hidden in Faffy's bedroom. The Dark Lord also tries to attack Princess Candy in a subsequent episode, where he tries to be opportunistic, when Candy comes out of her kingdom searching for an ultra-trendy antler hat. The Dark Lord also tries to mind control other beings, like the Vermite Queen, with which he destroys Dave's boutique, which is later realized by Dave, who gets into an altercation with him. Chuckles also tries to shapeshift into one of Candy's toys, and then using his magical amulet, creates an army of animals to take over Udragoth. He doesn't even stop at turning into Faffy's dragon trainer to steal the magical combat rattle. In his next attempt to capture Udragoth, Chuckles breaks open the fourth wall and gets to be the storyteller himself, to change the narrative and make him the ruler of Udragoth, which is spoiled as the storyteller gets laryngitis. In the final episode, he makes a pair of happy glasses, which can make the wearer see the world the way they really want it to be. Chaos unfolds as the glasses are worn by Dave, Candy, and Hunat. The end nears as finally Dave realizes the danger of the glasses and how without his family and loved ones, whatever else he wants is only like a cake without cheese. Dave manages to make Chuckles wear the glasses himself, thereby making him the happiest evil piggy ever, always seeing what he wants, even though in reality he's laid as pork on the food plate at the party of Udragoth. The Huntsman, American Dragon Jake Long. The evil ninja warrior is the archenemy of Jake Long in this series, where the two collide frequently over magical creatures and magic. The Huntsman is an extremely ruthless character who wants to erase all magical beings, including dragons, from the face of Earth. His intention is to find 13 Aztec crystal skulls of magical nature and align them in a ritual which is believed to destroy all magical creatures. In one of the episodes, Jake travels back in time where he meets a young huntsman with a meek appearance and voice. Due to Jake's time travel, the Hunts clan hands over his first assignment to Huntsman of kidnapping Jonathan Long, who happens to be Jake's father, since he knew the whereabouts of a dragon none other than Susan Long, the mother of Jake. After failed attempts to kill Jake, the Huntsman falls into a monster pit, which deforms him and also mutates his voice to the present one, which is feared by many. In the ultimate battle, the Hunts clan defeats Jake and his family and captures the 3 Aztec skulls. To to complete their collection and begin the ritual to destroy magic from the earth. However, Rose, who's Jake's girlfriend and also vengeful at the Huntsman for hiding her parents' identities, shoots the Huntsman with her weapon and uses the same ritual to destroy the entire Hunts clan. This eventually leads to the destruction of the entire Hunts clan as they all vanish into thin air, and thereby ending the Huntsman and his evil party altogether.
Answer me!
Marvelous verdict. As we revisit some of the iconic characters above and try to see the fun side of the relevance of them in those storylines, we also find a disturbing commonality like abusive childhoods and twisted upbringings. Be it Crocker's accidental abandonment of fairy godparents, or Monarch's parents' death, or even Hines Doofenshmirtz's self-proclaimed agonies when he was young. They all point at a trend which tries to talk about a global issue which needs to be tackled carefully, as young minds can go beyond irrecoverable damage if not helped early with love and affection. We also see a lot of time travel from these series from the 2000s, where this idea in animation was new and had a lot of possibilities to explore. So Aku's pushing of Jack into the future, Vlad and Danny traveling to alternate timelines to meet themselves with different roles, Gorath's leap to the past to conquer Megas, and Jake Long's meetup with a young Huntsman in the past, all lead to exciting ideas and have the potential to weave out alternate stories and seasons from the same characters. Most of the storyboards revolve around positivity and how negativity tries to break it persistently, but albeit the wobble, good prevails over evil ultimately. Also, many of the portrayals have an undying comical current flowing, which always keeps it subtle and less violent, even though all of them have been described as ruthless or merciless, with very less tolerance to any sort of forgiveness. When one listens to Aku's pizza ordering, or Darkseid's wooing of Wonder Woman, or Dr. Hines' misfiring inventions, or even the Dark Lord Chuckles' inhuman laughing at the end of the season, it gives a cute demeanor to the storylines, and how those writers might have imagined such ideas being perceived by the young target audiences. Our verdict will be that each of the above personas, with their unique superhuman abilities, can be enjoyed thoroughly with light humorous spirits lurking in them, making us want them to come back always with a new bag of tricks. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
Harm you.